Hey, hi, how are you? My name is Felt and welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV. We've already done an video about getting into Endgame with the bare bones of how to do that. We're going to be talking about Endgame gearing in this video. A little bit about how it works, but mostly some minor problems I have with the system when it comes to trying to gear multiple jobs at the same time. The Endgame gearing in 14 has some really solid pluses, but also a few pretty bold and in-your-face minuses. Let's get started. So we've talked about this before. We've talked about the gearing via tomestones in a previous video, but for those of you who missed it or didn't watch it or are new here, the basic idea is that you spend these weekly tomes that are a capped currency on pieces of gear, right side items as well, and you use all of that together to form half of your bis. The other half comes from Savage gear. Now, this is a great thing because that means that you can almost always be buying something and working towards your best in slot, right? You can always be buying gear. Well, the downside of that is that sure you can always be buying gear, but it takes like 6 to 8 weeks for some jobs to buy all the gear they need. For example, as healers this tier, I believe buy gloves, hat, and then every right side piece that you can get your hands on if you're going for a low piety build. That's a lot of weeks of farming out tomes for one job. There's a lot of weeks and a lot of tomes. All right, they also buy pants. Pants alone take 2 full weeks to grind out. They are $8.25 to purchase. It is 2 full weeks of grinding to grab tomes for pants. It is a lot. It is a long investment. So while it is good that you can eventually work towards these items you want to buy, and you can always be progressing towards them on a weekly basis, if you're trying to gear multiple jobs, it doesn't really work out. You get stuck in the position that I'm in, for example, where I love playing Samurai, and it's the job I'm playing in my static at the moment, but I also really want to gear Dragoon and Reaper. And I've constantly been having to stock up tomes to be able to buy these gloves, and these pants, and these gloves, right? As well as, thankfully, the right side is, the same. But if I also want to gear my Bard, which I've been doing a little bit as well, I had to buy a bunch of right side items again. As well as now I have to work towards buying my left side items. And that's not even counting the fact that weapons are 500 tomes, which is essentially 2 weeks worth of grinding. It is a rather large investment to be able to get these pieces of gear. And while that is fine for like your first job, having to do that over and over and over again, 6 to 8 weeks per job to get them in their best armor really adds up in terms of time spent. And it is it's a slight downside to the system because, well, sure, some jobs share right side gear, some jobs share left side gear. Overall, it is still a lot of time spent playing the game, capping out your tomes every single week to get all this gear. So I've talked about this in previous videos, but you gear in Savage by either getting the items to drop from the chest, which, if you're in Party Finder, the odds of both getting what you want and getting a high roll on it in the same week is dreadfully low, unless it's pretty late and most people are already out of loot, or you like politely request and everyone says, yeah, sure, you can take that piece, most of us don't need it. Unlikely, but possible. But the main way is that you get books. You get 1 book every time you clear a fight. These red books are from the first fight of the tier, yellow's typically second, green's third, white's fourth. That's been the color synchronization, I guess could be a good word, for Abyssos and Pandemonium so far. It probably will carry over into the next tier as well. That's the general idea. First, second, third, fourth fights of each tier drop different books, and those books can be used to buy the items from the tier. So, 4 books buys a single right side item, 4 books buys boots, gloves, or hat, 8 books for pants, 8 books for chest piece, 8 books for weapon. Let's put that in perspective, though. Let's talk about, like, Samurai, for example. Now, Samurai is the job that I played with my statics. I think I've mentioned this before. I bring up that phrasing a lot because I love Dragoon and it's one of my favorite jobs, but I play Samurai at the moment. Samurai, for their Savage bis, needs boots from Savage, pants from Savage, chest piece from Savage, which I don't have, helmet from Savage, and weapon from Savage. Which means that you need hat and boots from the 6th fights, right? That's already 8 weeks of clearing P6 here, right? It's 8 weeks, assuming you don't ever get a drop. And then 8 weeks to buy the pants. Here's the kicker, though. There are augment materials that exist. There are twine and shine. Remember how I said you can buy these items from the vendor? Well, they're not at their highest level, right? To augment them, you need these shines and brines. It's like, all right, well, that's awesome. Samurai only needs 8 weeks to clear out of 6. No. No, they don't, because Samurai needs 3 right side augment items. They need earrings, they need necklace, and they need ring. This is assuming 2.14 skill speed or 2.15 skill speed Samurai, by the way, just as a disclaimer. That's an extra 12 books you need if you're not getting lucky and getting the drop. And then left side augment, you need another 4 weeks. So that's now 20 weeks, assuming you never get a drop. Highly unlikely, you'll probably get something you need eventually, but assuming worst case scenario, that is 20 weeks of doing this fight in order to get all of the items you need from it. And from 6. And from 7, it is 12 weeks, because you need 1 brine and you need 1 twine. Actually, sorry, you need 1 twine and then you need your pants. So that's 12 total weeks. And if you want to augment the weapon that you purchased to be optimal, it's another 4 weeks. 16 weeks. That's a lot of time in those fights. And now think about the fact that you would have to do that for other jobs as well if you wanted to gear other jobs. I've been slowly gearing up my bard, as I said, and I got lucky to get this helmet to drop, because up until now, I've still been having to buy augment mats to finish out like Dragoon, Samurai, Monk, Bis-Is? Like this past week, I wanted to technically buy an augment material for my Monk, but in order to fix my Reaper Dragoon Bis, so I could actually try and play them in somewhat endgame stuff, I wanted to go ahead and buy boots, that I have a pair of boots for them that isn't from last tier, or that I had to go grind Savage for. It really adds up the amount of time that you have to spend clearing these fights on a weekly basis once you realize how many times you have to clear for the twines and shines as well as just the loot itself. Now thinking about the weapons and chest piece, it is 16 weeks. 16 clears, assuming you never get the drop. Now, I know it's unlikely. There's a pretty high odds that you'll get one or the other of the drops within the first 8 weeks, and then you can just use your 8 books to buy the other one. But then once again, what happens if you want to gear alt jobs? Then all of a sudden, bam, you now have even more time that you have to spend grinding it to get that gear for alt jobs. This is all assuming pre-lockout, by the way. There is a point in time when Savage Loot becomes unlocked, and it becomes free-for-all farming for everybody involved. This is assuming that you are in that massive, at the moment, 4 to 6 month period where it's not unlocked. You're having to do this every week over and over and over again just to have chances at getting your items, and if not, you're getting your books and just slowly working up towards actually being able to buy the items you need week after week. Which, it's good because you have an endpoint in mind. You have an amount of books that you know you need to get your job done. But it's still a really lot of time to be spending in it. It's really a lot of time to be grinding for it. And then if you want to gear alternate jobs, it gets even worse. Like I said, most of these downsides come from the fact that if you think about gearing an alternate job, the amount of time that you need to spend in these fights goes up exponentially, which is really rough. Now, is this a huge issue? No. Is this a massive, crazy, world-ending problem? No, it's none of that. It's just a minor complaint I have. And it's something that I almost want to warn people about, in a way, when it comes to gearing alt jobs, because it's something that never clicked in my head when I first started doing endgame stuff last year. I didn't realize how long I had to spend grinding tomes if I wanted to gear alt jobs, how long I had to keep spending in Savage to get alt jobs geared as well. So it's kind of like a minor warning slash general complaint video, as well as just like a discussion of the state of endgame gearing and the weird problems that it exists, but yet it's still good because you do have a goal that you can see. There is no pure RNG factor. There is always a way to eventually get what you want. It just requires a lot of weeks and a lot of either tomes or books from the fights. Hopefully you learned something from this. Hopefully this brought something to your attention. Maybe you two have been having this thing and this almost feels like a, yeah, I agree with that, let's vent about this together type video. But either way, that's just something I wanted to make. So thanks for hanging out and watching. If you liked it, feel free to leave a like. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this on the channel, and I hope to catch you in the next one.